Nice to see everyone again. Uh, Welcome to our Light Body Alive. And on this channel, what we're seeking to do is present a reliable progression of development of the energy body, and to present it as a systematic progression so that we develop the physical body, the outer body, and as I have on the blackboard here, which eventually matures into the light body and then the diamond light body. Then chakras have different functions, both physically, emotionally, on all levels, really, and they become an energetic interface between the physical body and the energy body. And then when we move into the light body and what we call the light body vehicle, it becomes a kind of a propulsion system. So we have learned, and this is through our own experience and through working with uh, people in the healing domain, that it's important to develop certain abilities and to have a foundation before we move into more advanced energetic work. We've had instances where people jumped into the advanced stages before they had developed good foundation and then encountered some pretty deep and long-term difficulties. And uh, the ones that I kept in touch with did eventually emerge and stabilize, but it can be very destabilizing to jump ahead into certain practices before you have a really good foundation. And that foundation is also developed as a progression. So we work with the body and it's the role that it plays, and the outer body, which is a bioplasmic field. It also functions as a membrane that has semi-permeability, it has selective permeability, and we're working with our different processes to develop those awarenesses so that we can utilize that capacity from a conscious standpoint. Now, to some degree, we're doing that unconsciously, but also there's a lot of times where the need for it is happening and we're not able to become less permeable or more permeable. So it's a big shift in awareness when we're able to utilize that capacity on a conscious level. Now, the individual cell does that automatically. It's automatic consciousness, but the human and the utilizing this developing outer body bioplasm needs to become aware of it, notice that it has permeability and selectivity, and then utilize that in the day-to-day activities, especially when you're developing consciousness, because the act of developing consciousness, the act of developing awareness provokes this kind of permeability. And so we need to be able to regulate it. Um, the chakras have the ability to stabilize us physically. Like if our blood sugar is off, if our energy is low, we can identify places in the chakral system, harmonize those and improve those conditions. We can also use the chakra system dynamically for adjusting our emotional state and also the condition state of relationships, interactions with other people, with the environment, and also even the animal domain. Kundalini, this is one that we present and recommend for quite a time, that is worked with just for stabilization of the rest of the system, to anchor it. And once the rest of the system is in place, working synergistically, then we work with activating more advanced and, let's say, more dynamic uh, movements, activities of the Kundalini. And we recommend that people don't provoke those. If you're reading a book about Kundalini, it's interesting information, good to know. Some of those practices, though, are not recommended if you haven't developed the other factions first. And just uh, another, just to say it again, we're presenting this as a system. Just like we have a digestive system, respiratory system, we have an energetic system that includes these different components, and we need to work with them and to develop them. It's like when a baby's born, it has to learn to turn over and crawl. And once it starts crawling, we don't put it on the corner of the street and say, okay, now crawl across the street. It needs to be able to stand up and develop the cognitive skills to recognize when that's a good idea, when it's a good possibility. So it's similar like that. If we jump into just advanced chakra or kundalini um, work, it's like trying to crawl across the street. We don't know when it's a good time and when it's not. Anyway, we're presenting these ideas, in different ways with different processes, different information, so that people can develop themselves and understand how to utilize what is emerging naturally from evolution, development of our species. And if you're someone that's interested in these things, someone that's watching this channel, then it's already happening to you. And that's what attracts you to finding out more about it. Um, Another thing that comes up with is how to practice. And there's a lot of ideas about that we could go over. One of the most important things for me, and it's almost like a short to midterm objective, that we learn the different ideas and the processes of how to expand and contract the outer body, as an example, to recognize when it's more permeable, less permeable, and also invoke those states uh, through choice. And then this becomes a very dynamic state. Um, and in the short term, what we want to recommend is that we go from the practicing of these things, and it's good to always practice. If you're a musician playing music, it's still good to practice some technique, practice some things to develop your ear. But in the end, you want to spend the majority of the time really enjoying and playing the instrument once you get the technical ability to do that. It's very similar here because the objective is that it becomes a dimension of life that has enjoyment, that has interest, that has curiosity. Once we develop the light body, um, it becomes a way to have a journey, to have excitement, pleasure, stimulation. And so just like we might go out with friends, play games like cards or something like that, to have fun with people, go out and have a fine meal, things that we do to experience and enjoy life, then it becomes more like that, to do the light body activation. Um, some people, I mean, most people have sexual impulse. They find pleasure, enjoyment from that. This is not that, but pleasure and enjoyment is also something that becomes a characteristic, a quality of doing the light body activation. So even in the short term, once we get these different skills and we learn the processes of how to utilize them together, then we're in a state of enjoyment, uh, discovery. Even though in the course, different courses that we do processes that utilize these different elements, the different ways to work with them, um, and we go to the point where you can have discovery on your own. Sometimes I will do a process and then go into the discovery, um, but also the underlying uh, structure of the processes is that it takes you to the point of discovery so that you can move past that on your own when you're doing the light body activation on your own or with another person or a group of people, which is other ways you can do it. You can don't have to always do alone, although probably most of the time you will do it physically alone, but you also might want to join together with people, in the energetic planes and join up with friends that way. So I just wanted to say that it's not like an exercise that we have to do. It's, our daily practice. I don't feel like it becomes something that we really look forward to, just like we look forward to some of the things that I was talking to you about before. Um, I we don't eat a dessert every day, maybe, but some days we get this feeling, well, we want to have dessert today. Similar, like that kind of um, attraction is something that we have incorporated into the dimension of life that the light body activation brings to us. So another thing that gives us the desire to do these programs is that we want to have questions from all of the people watching, and see if that we can come to common understanding, clear up any um, misunderstandings or things that you're not able to grasp. So, Lynn, do we have any questions?
No questions. No one has written any questions in the chat yet today, but anybody who's on the live stream, feel free to write in the chat. If you can't access the chat, it could be you have to subscribe to the channel first, and or you might want to use a tablet or a laptop rather than your phone, just as an idea. But anyway, I do have some questions people emailed in.
Okay.
And one of them was somebody asking about, can you use this work to improve interactions with other people and in their relationships? This person hadn't really gone through much of the course, if any of it yet. So they didn't even see there are some actual processes about that. But maybe you want to say something about that.
Well, for sure, in the latest course that we presented, there were specific ideas for how to work with relationships and different kinds of relationships. When there is friction in a relationship, there's energetic um, friction, disharmony. And there's ways that we can bring the wavelengths into resonance or coherence so that we can have what we call communication, communion, which is not always verbal. It can be just through this resonance that we align and have understanding without even saying anything. But also, if there's verbal interaction, then we start to speak, so to speak, the same language. We can be speaking technically the same language, but if the frequencies are not aligned, then in a way one doesn't translate to the other. So once we bring our resonance in alignment, then we're double speaking the same language. Um, okay, so that's one thing. And what was the other part of the question? Oh, I got it. I'm sorry. So about how to use it for relationships. There's numerous courses that we presented in the past too that have different variations of this process. So, but for sure, we did put quite a bit of attention to that in this last program.
And then there's been questions regarding the time space process and using this light body journey for our own healing. But then people were asking, can we use it to work with other people, other group, world events, to travel to different spaces in time or different locations in space time?
So there's quite a number of ways that we can look at this whole idea of using the vehicle to move through space and time. Now, when we go to certain frequency, and this has been something that's been an important topic of quantum physics, is that past and future are really the same thing as the present. They're on a continuum, they're the same. And we can take a look at when we say time travel, like going to the future or the past, have to recognize what that really means right now to a large extent is through utilizing the frequencies where past and future become the present, all the same thing at the same time. We, in our present condition, the past is a certain set of circumstances, positive and negative. In the future, a lot of it's what we think we want to accomplish, change into, um, and also contains like our fears that we project out, negative images that we project out. So the main place that we can really transform is the present. What we're doing right now is where we can change. And the only one that we really, only thing we really have the power to change is ourself. And so the past is alive in the present in an unconscious state. We're really functioning a lot in past time, like from our memory, from our projection of, well, if our past experience subconsciously is our expectation of what's going to happen. And in that sense, what was the past becomes the future as well. So if we're aligning our energy system, and this is the key point, uh, I mean, affirmations are good, visualizations are good, journaling is good. All these practices are really good for vibrational change and alignment. However, we can go right to the source, right to the energy system, align and synthesize the energy system, find the aberrations, the distortions, and change that. And this starts to alter the past in the sense of the impact of it and how we perceive it. Completely changes how we feel about it. We also, when we vibrate at a higher frequency, start to connect with soul alignment, we start to understand the real purpose of those experiences. And so we don't categorize them so much as negative, or are also wildly positive. Experience really transcends that whole concept. So when we make this alignment, not only does past perception and impact change, but also the quality of how we manifest the ongoing present into what was previously perceived as future, because future also starts to be perceived as present, present as future, and it becomes one and the same. So I'm not saying not to do visualizations, affirmations, all these practices, psychology, all these practices. But when you want to straighten out the wheel, you have to go to the center and make that more symmetrical, more harmonious. And that's what the energetic processes are doing. So with with the time travel, that's like at the individual level, how you can work with that. So if you going to an event and you want to, and let's say you have some trepidation or anxiety about it, you can align your energy and move to that event before it's really physically happened. But you know how it's going to kind of look and maybe even where it's going to be. And bring that energetic alignment into the space, into that dimension, vibrate there, so that when you physically arrive, that framework of symmetry and harmony and alignment is already there to bring you in, to accept you to it. And as everyone also that's involved is arriving, they're already relating to you in that point of alignment. So you can do that, and also traveling back in, so to speak, into the past. Like I said, though, past is alive in the present, the impact of it, the memory of it, the interpretation of it. And when you revisit that, in a way, you're in the present, but you're also in the past. And you vibrate with that alignment, and those memories and the perception and the impact also begin to shift. Now, when you're working, somebody asks, well, can I utilize this with someone else's? How did they put that then? Yeah, it's someone else's healing. Like what you want to offer something positive, some input. This you have. This is a little bit more. How would you say sensitive? Because when you go toward that person or group that you may be perceiving as not well, needing um, support or energy, you have to be very aware of whether you're being invited in or not. And if you move toward that and you feel that there's resistance or pushback, repulsion, you have to respect that and move away, because it's that person or that group's process. And we need to be embracing whatever that wish is for that particular person or group. But if you're invited in, then you can move into the space with that person or persons, and then also create for yourself the energetic alignment, and that may transfer, have the possibility to transfer to that person or group. Now, what are the results of that? All these three things that I talked about: your individual, working with a direct relationship, is a next step, like a friend, a spouse, a partner, a sibling, a child, your child. But then working with people that are more outside your immediate family or blood um, framework, or immediate friend framework. So when you get to the group or someone outside that framework, you have to look for permission. The thing is in all those levels, afterwards, looking for the effect that this practice had. And I spent time myself, over time, before I would present something like that, to test it. And sometimes the result is very subtle. And so if you're expecting something really right, right at you, something very large, you may miss the subtleties of the change that take place. So if you're watching them, then you'll notice often very subtle shifts that take place in the interaction, in the feeling of it. And even after, let's say you meet with someone or you go to an event, afterwards you notice that there was a certain thread of harmony that maybe was not there. But sometimes it's very dramatic, and you realize, well, that was very harmonious. And even though you had trepidation, anxiety about it, afterwards you notice, wow, there was really quite a good sense of harmony and dynamism to the situation. Now, also, people ask about what can I do with world events, which are stressed in this moment, high stress, high friction, as we know. And as that's going on, this is what gives also the, you could say, the green light to say that this kind of light body work is more not only appropriate, but also needed in the moment. Because within the light body perception, higher frequency perception, these world events, you could say, is like the sickness coming out. Sickness, whether it's physical sickness, emotional sickness, when it's healing, and this is a very important principle of Chinese medicine, as an example, that the sickness comes to the surface and the symptoms increase. Now, at that point, a lot of times in Western medicine, then we put even more medication on it. But in Chinese medicine, it's seen as, well, it's a good thing because it's coming out of the body. And in a lot of ways, this is what's happening on planet Earth right now, as planet Earth is looking to heal itself, as the human population is looking to heal itself. Because if we look around the globe, we can see that it's a fraction of a percentage of the people that are creating the friction, whereas the vast majority are trying to move toward harmony. So it's interesting that the leverage of just such a small percentage of people can have through manipulating the belief systems of the rest of the whole global population, and to transform that into a more constructive, positive, healthy perception, we raise consciousness and frequency, and that's what can make the shift. The original tenet of the transcendental community was that it only takes 1%. And then it was said to take only 1% of 1% to shift, to reach the critical mass of consciousness that would then shift the global behavior, the global consciousness. And therefore, this friction, power, inhumanity that goes on that manipulates the rest of the globe will dissipate. It will melt away. And so that's in a lot of ways when we talk about interacting with the global situation. This is the dynamic. What we can do in the light body work is just to arrive in the light body frequency and vibrate that. Let's say, as an example, one thing that comes up for me regularly is that I find myself in this diamond matrix, vibrating, aligning the different chakras and the kundalini channels. And then I find myself sitting in the earth, the size of the whole earth, vibrating these frequencies out without expectation, just vibrating that frequency out into the earth plane. And I think that to try to force change only creates more of what we're trying to change. But this is like non-expectational, just vibrating those frequencies as what is, and then seeing if your alignment can then create a deeper and more expanded alignment going out not only into this plane but other planes. So that's how I would say that you could work with this whole idea of using the vehicle of the diamond matrix. And we did these processes in the latest program. And when you go through the steps of creating the vehicle, discover. That's what happens. You discover the subtleties, the nuances of how to utilize it. Test it out. Don't jump in and say, oh, well, this is something that works. Take your time and see if it replicates the effect, replicates the result. And then you'll know that you have discovered a pathway that's reliable that you can use to create this kind of work. Journey work, healing work, the excitement of being in a higher frequency. Because when you go to higher frequencies, there's relief. You're relieved of worry. You're relieved of anger. You're relieved of judgment. Because in those higher expanded frequencies of the light body, then that kind of interpretation doesn't exist there. So that's one thing that we can perceive. That's one thing that we can understand.
Anna Maria asked, when my vehicle rotates, I happen to follow the rotation with my body, and I felt that the rotation then amplified the vibrations of the vehicle. Is it okay to do it in that way?
Yeah, you can do it that way. And if you start spinning physically, you might get a little dizzy. But one thing that can be really interesting is if you're moving, spiraling like that, at a certain point, without tension in your body, just stop and expand. And what you'll notice is that the spinning intensifies, but your physical body stays stable. And so then your whole frequency from the deepest part of your physical body to your outer body will go through an expansion. It's quite a nice experience. But yeah, as long as you're comfortable physically with that, then of course you can follow it.
When you were talking about how in transcendental meditation they say 1% of 1% is the amount of the population needed to shift the consciousness of humanity, it was making me think also within each one of our systems, these light body techniques, like coming into contact with parts of your energy matrix and working with them, even very small percentages of change, say in the cranial motion of the parietals or the rotation of the heart chakra, like very small percentages of change can shift the state of the whole body. And that's what I've been noticing more within my own system, my own life.
Yeah, I mean the difference in perception between like our gross perception and our proprioception. So something that's very minuscule to our gross perception that we're utilizing most of the day um, may be a great change at the level of proprioception. And so therefore also at those levels it can have a pretty big impact.
One of the things I'm hearing relatively common in emails that people are sending me privately about this work is that like some people feel a lot of ongoing depression, fatigue, or anxiety. And they're even saying, well, I'm having trouble basically getting to the materials because I'm so bogged down with these negative feelings and overwhelmment in my life. And so I was wondering if you could say something about our mindset or conditioning of what to do when we're having trouble. It's like most people don't think, oh, I'll sit down and work on my energy system and that's the way to solve or address this. Instead, we're running around like doing certain actions that maybe we've tried our whole life and think, well, once I do that and things are a little better, then I'll sit down and meditate. Or I was wondering if you could address that a little bit.
I don't think that there's one answer. I think there's some good ideas that are almost universal. As an example, when people are emotionally upset, and that's like a barrier to doing anything positive, I mean, you still have to be able to get to the point where you can do something. And aerobics, or I'm just giving an example of one thing that's kind of universal. If you move the circulation, it tends to elevate the emotions, to bring it from the negative more toward neutral to positive. So anything like from jumping rope, um, uh, just moving the body, jumping jacks, calisthenics, that's what you call them, to just going on like a workout machine, um, a hula hoop, all these kind of things. So that's one possibility that you can do. Sometimes, as an example, you have to be, and what we're working to develop is flexibility on different levels. Sometimes you can be dehydrated, and that can make things look dark. So it could be that you just need to drink some water. That can help. Now, overdoing that can also not be a good thing. So, drink slowly. It's probably overlooked and underrated, but when people drink, it's not just putting water in your body and gulping it down, because then it just goes through the body. But if you take water in your mouth and you mix it with your saliva, it enters into the cellular structure. So you hydrate more, but with less fluid going in. So less taxing on the fluid processing organs in the body, like the kidneys. So aerobics, and then you can say, well, what kind? What's available to you? What do you like to do? But I mean, if you just sit in your chair and want to be depressed, I mean, not want to be depressed, but you're depressed, there has you discover over time certain triggers, certain pathways to do something that will move you into a more positive state. Once you sit um, and work with the light body, as an example with the chakras, whenever you're in a negative emotional state, like anxiety, like depression, what somebody said they had depression, you're going to find that one or two or more of the chakras are out of sync. And a lot of times it's just the front one with the back one. I talked about that in the last module, in the module called Chakra Workout. And you get this kind of like wobbling. And a lot of times the wobbling, or even like it's detached, like a detached retina of the eye, it feels like it's almost detached, wobbling around, where the back tends to be like stuck, can't work. And I was talking about how to use the front to correct the back, or the back to correct the front, to get it into like a harmonious flow, a harmonious circulation. So once you do that, you'll get to this point where it clicks. Oh, I'm really feeling like negative. I'm really feeling dark. And then those larger categories will translate to specifics: depression, anxiety, I'm overwhelmed, I'm really angry, frustrated, all those categories. But then, and that could lead you to look first at certain chakras, depending, like anxiety at the fourth chakra or the second chakra, anger, frustration at the third chakra. But that's just general. Could be any related to any state. But it'll once you're in it, when you notice, oh well, I really don't feel well. I'm really not feeling very. I feel really dark, angry, depressed. Then you oh, let me check my chakra system, and you're almost always going to find one of two things. In my case, I think I always find something, a chakra or two, maybe more, that are not in sync, where you've got one stuck, one wobbling, or these kundalini channels are asymmetrical, and when you bring them back into symmetry, there's a big change, or at least enough of a change. There's a spectrum of possibilities from 0 to 100+%. So if we're expecting like to go from deeply depressed to really joyous, I'm saying that you may go from deeply depressed, from feeling at least neutral. That's a big change. And now you can do some other things without being bogged down by the negativity. So we look for 5% change, 10% change, and it will happen that you have large degrees of change. And the better you get at this identifying, then the faster the swing and the faster you catch it. Because sometimes you might feel anxiety or depressed and then you're stuck in it for hours, for days. And then it finally dawns on you, well, I should check my system. And then you alter it and you think, wow, that really does something. And so you get quicker at identifying that and shifting it, either the chakras, um, the kundalini, but it also could be this permeability factor or the whole system synchronization. And like I said, it becomes more reliable, and you it's a go-to. Um, so that's what I would answer to that question. And I say that I don't feel like I say that conceptually. I say that from utilizing this over and over again for years, actually. And I find also over those years that it becomes more dynamic, and I have more insight into the workings of it. And the more that happens, the more enthusiastic I become about trying to tell other people to learn it, to utilize it, so that they can feel better. When you feel better, your resonance is affecting everything around you also in a more positive and better way. Uh, Family, friends, and on and on. So
Tishelle asks, how do you manage that relief when you come out of the higher dimensions into daily life? You were saying it's often such a relief to enter into those higher frequencies.
well, I mean, one thing is allowing it, allowing yourself to feel well and relieved, even, if some things around you are working to the opposite. Mhm. And so it can be that once we get back to our so-called normal state where we interact with the physical world, that our belief, our deep belief is, well, it's going to be frictional. There's going to be negative relationships. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be whatever it is that doesn't feel good. And so you have to say, well, do I want to allow myself to be in a state of wellness? And part of that also is you'll start noticing how people and things around you work like gravity to pull you into those negative states, those unwell, that frictional kind of states. And inner dialogue that you'll discover is an expectation. Well, that's how it is. Whereas when you come back with relief and the feeling of levity and empowerment, to allow yourself to be in that, even when you um, land again into the three-dimensional plane. It takes some effort and time. It takes some letting go, because when you start to align yourself in the way that creates relief, wellness, a feeling of um, serenity, let's say, a feeling of positiveness, um, it takes time to allow that. And what happens is things will start to go out from your life that were creating the friction, creating the um, non-wellness, and you have to let that go. So that you also come into confrontation with your attachment to the things that make you feel not well. And so if you want to be well, noticing that and just letting things go, because those things want to move away when you get into a state of wellness and alignment. The things that were created or have appeared through non-alignment will start to reorganize. But then you may grasp at them, and then you say, well, am I really willing to be well? Am I willing to be in a state of positiveness? Or am I going to get drawn through the gravity, the black hole again of the negativity and non-wellness? How are we doing? Should we wrap up?
Well, if you want to do a process.
Okay, so I could go on and on and on. I love these questions, and I enjoy them so much uh, because it really reminds me of my own journey. And as you know, I'm here with Lynn, and she is also telling me about the things that she experiences and from what we're talking about. And many of you have been writing in. Those things are posted, by the way, on the website and within the course. So you'll see that there are some pretty interesting reactions um, to people doing the work that we're talking about, doing these activations. Go ahead. Because I'm going to do a simple process.
Andrea just said, I do energy healing with animals. Today, during a session, I connected with the soul star, chakras, etc., and the light body vessel appeared. I felt the healing was intensified. Can you comment on this?
That the healing for the animal was intensified. Well, I think animals in particular oftentimes feel and notice things that we as humans don't, because they're not distracted by a lot of things. As an example, their phone um, or screens and things like that, or the news. So yes, I believe that if you vibrating a certain way around an animal, they're going to pick that up, and they will seek you out. I know that when I go over to my son's house, my son's Great Dane, this huge dog, he just he just can't wait to see me, because he knows that he's going to get a certain kind of energy from me that he loves, and we've got quite a romance going.
And just so people know, some people in this course maybe weren't doing light body work with you a few years ago.
Mhm.
And Saul did a whole series called Light Body Exploration Days. And several of them do detail a method for doing distance healing or remote healing sessions. And some of you might be interested in those. So if you are, just send me an email and I will get you the information for which one of those recordings goes into that, because you haven't really talked about that
Yeah,
specifically in a long time. It again, you did this one process in this course, but it wasn't focused on distance healings.
right. So the light body exploration days, we did 8 of them, and there's so much material in there, processes that are complementary, information uh, about how to apply this to a whole spectrum of things, like distance healing. What were some of the other ones? Different formulas of point activations for like sleeping, indigestion, things like headaches, things like that. Uh, there was a whole discussion about sexuality in there. What else? Uh, how the hormonal system functions and how we can utilize that knowledge for creating higher states, for balancing out our three-dimensional state. So we're taking another look at how to present those, but also if you're interested in a lot of information and applications and variations of what we've been talking about with these latest courses, just check those out. We'll be definitely saying more about that as we go along because we realize the degree of material and applications that are just sitting there. Um, and we'd like to see people utilize those as well. All right, so I've talked about this before. I'm just going to say a few brief things. Advanced work, basic work. At a certain point, they're the same thing at the same time. So I really recommend that you always keep revisiting basics because they will open the door constantly to new information and they will in them of themselves become an advanced work. Um, so we've talked about feeling the sensation in different points. I'm going to work with that today. So I'm going to work with 3 points that I think are very interesting to work with when you have your outer body expanded, after or before you've done chakra balancing, whenever it comes up actually to do them. But as far as like advanced work with the light body vehicle, these will become key points. They are acupuncture points, but then in the light body, they become like activation points, spinning points in a way. So, kidney 1, what I'll recommend right now is just give a light. Now, usually I say just activate this with the mind, but let's just go like this. And you can massage, just press like that. Second point, maybe you want to just do this on one side, but from the ankle bone, 4 knuckles up, right next to this bone called the tibia. This is called spleen 6. But spleen 6 is an interesting point because the name of it is San In Ko, and that means the 3 yin junctions. So the 3 most powerful acupuncture meridians, liver, kidney, and spleen, all join there. They all come there. So 3 meridian junction, very powerful whole body point. Okay, then if we take the, and I know some of you have done this before, but we're going to just do it all together. And something I'm doing on a regular basis, using these points. On the outside of the tibia, 4 knuckles down, there's like a groove there. And this is stomach 36, the 1,000-mile point. So it's a stamina point. So it's a whole body energy point, good for digestion. And let's just do that on one side, because then we'll try to activate it just mentally on the other side. So take a deep breath in, parasympathetic breath. Let the air come out slowly over the back of the nose, activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Breathe in, fill up the belly, the chest, the upper chest, and then slowly breathe out, empty the upper chest, the belly. I'm doing 2 more breaths in and slowly out. And when you breathe through the back of the nose slowly and deeply, it's like massaging the parasympathetic nervous system, affecting the vagus nerve, activating the vagus nerve. Bring your attention down to the kidney 1, the center, the ball of the foot. And hopefully a lot of you are getting good at this now, meaning you can really get the sensation of numb, tingling, heat very quickly. And when you feel that numb or tingling, what you notice is that that point stands out from the rest of the body. It's speaking, it's louder, it's amplified. And everything else is a little bit muted in comparison. And as you feel that point get numb and tingling, you can feel it penetrate into the foot and appear on the top of the foot and spread through the bones in the foot to the instep and the heel. And it's a good practice sometimes when you spread the energy to then bring it back to a focal point, back to the point, and exercise that ability to use the mind and the awareness to alter energies, to move energies, to spread them, to focus them. And there's side effects to this, whereas like this kind of exercise is developing proprioception. It's developing your ability to regulate the energy system for its advanced capabilities, healing, self-development, self-balancing. All right, now we'll go to the spleen point, the inside of the leg, up from the ankle bone, 4 knuckles up, and then bring your attention there. The 3 yin meridian junction. Liver, kidney, spleen. And you'll feel those points start to become numb and tingling. The one that we did massage, but also you'll be able to feel that start to activate in the one we did not massage. And eventually, the level of sensation and penetration will be the same. Again, demonstrating that we can move energy around the body powerfully with the mind and awareness. And you'll feel that spleen 6 point activate, penetrate into the lower leg and also into the bone. And you can feel it spread along that big tibia, thick bone. You can feel that bone start to vibrate. And you can play back and forth from letting it spread back to the focal point. Where an acupuncturist may place the needle or an acupuncture may massage it. And as you have your awareness on the spleen 6 point, now go back and at the same time feel the kidney 1 point. And you can feel all 4 areas at the same time. And it has a local effect, but also the synergy of the 4 points vibrating. Notice the feeling that it gives in the lower leg and the foot. There's a sensation, like a lifting sensation. And now the last point. Go to the stomach 36. On the outside of the lower leg, 4 knuckles below the kneecap. And start to feel that point. Numb and tingling. Penetrating in like a needle being placed in the point, or someone applying deep pressure. And you can feel almost like someone's pressing with their thumb, or like an acupuncture needle is slipping in. And you can feel that numb and tingling sensation spreading to the top part of the tibia, into the kneecap, through to the other side of the leg, the inside of the lower leg. And once you get it to spread like that, contain it back to the point. Focalize that sensation. And now you can feel stomach 36, spleen 6, and kidney 1. All together, 6 points. Numb, tingling, vibrating together. Keep your attention on the sensation of the 6 points. It's actually 3 points, but on both sides equals 6. Stomach 36, spleen 6, kidney 1. Notice the effect it has on your whole body. You know, like I said, it's something you could do after you expand your outer body or before. You could expand your outer body very quickly while still keeping your attention. Feel these points resonating with the outer body. Expanding through the etheric, emotional, mental layer. Okay, take a deep breath in. And keeping your attention on these sensations of the 3 points, let your eyes open slowly. And let your eyes come back to clear focus. Come back into the density, the form, the structure of your body, the weight. This is how you come back and you ground yourself. Feel the weight. Feel your density and the shape of your body, your muscles, your bones. So once we work with these different elements, we can use like templates of how to go through a process. And as we go through a process, we can also discover and we can improvise. And I hope that that's something that you will do and enjoy. So is there any other last comments, Lynn? Well, I hope that you enjoyed our discussion today. And thank you for the questions that you've been sending in during the week and or the weeks. And also the comments that you've been making are really helpful for us, in our own uh, work to verify and research the effects of what we're doing. And we'll be letting you know when we're going to do this again, probably in a couple of weeks. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the outer net.